What? It's for Disney's 100th anniversary? I never would have guessed! Welcome to Jester Brothers Cartoon Theater. I'm Jester Lou. I just got finished watching a pre-screening of Disney's new movie, Wish. I just wanted to jump on here and give some of my first thoughts, talk about what audience I think this is for, let you know if this is something that you'll enjoy and if you should go out to see it in the theaters. And if you've already seen it, I'm here to confirm or deny your bias. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more hi, me, I guess. And let me know in the comments what you thought of this movie if you've seen it, or if you haven't, what other movies you're excited that are coming out soon, or anything else you want me to review. I'm taking this off. It's hot. I left that in the edit so you didn't have a weird continuity problem. My god, this is one of the most Disney films I have ever seen. So I look up at the stars to guide me. Which I'm sure shouldn't surprise anybody. It's called Wish. It's completely playing with the idea of when you wish upon a star. Disney's magnum opus of a line. And I'll just start off by saying, I don't know if this is a pro or a con. It probably depends on who you are and where you're coming from. But this movie does not let you forget that it is a Disney film. Before I get ahead of myself, I'll just go over the basic plot line. I'm gonna do this without giving any spoilers, but it's not like it's exactly here to blow your mind with any plot development. I'd be surprised if you didn't know what this movie was going to give you within 5 minutes of watching it. But hold on, don't reserve your judgments with just hearing that, because there is a lot that this movie has to offer. It starts off with a storybook introduction, which is just so classic fairy tale, very classic Disney. It hilariously reminded me more of the opening to the Shrek movie than any Disney property, actually.
Many brave knights had attempted to free her from this dreadful prison, but none prevailed.
Which probably isn't a good thing because Shrek is completely just making fun of movies and stories like this. But regardless, it gives you the story of this sorcerer guy who's magic. Magnifico, played by Chris Pine. He's the king of this town, and he has this amazing ability to grant people's wishes. But the story really follows a 17-year-old not Princess Asha, played by Ariana DeBose, who grew up as apparently a pretty normal part in this city. It's pretty unclear if she's supposed to have some sort of like role or job in this society, or what any of these people really do. It seems like some of the teenagers that are around Asha's age kind of like work in this kitchen together. I don't really know how it works. Child labor laws are complicated. It takes place in the city of Rosa, an island in a random place in time in the Mediterranean Sea. Ultimately, I think they're going for a very fantasy vibe, and I think that that's a strength. I almost think that having it take place in an island in the Mediterranean Sea is even too specific. It could have just been a storybook tale. You didn't need to pretend like it was grounded in any sort of realism.
Boom! Did we just blow your mind? Well, I've known the entire time.
At the start of the movie, it's Asha's big day. It's her grandfather's 100th birthday, and she's going to try to apprentice for the king and hopefully get her grandfather's wish granted by becoming the apprentice. Find out that he's got this magical castle that has all of these books that teach about magic, and he's the one guy who can do magic in this town, and he's got this like observatory looking place with a bunch of the villagers' wishes that are all stored in there. We find out relatively quickly that this king is not so good a guy, and that he's kind of getting a power complex with being this magician and controlling what happens to all of these wishes. So pretty much for the rest of this review, I'm just going to be referring to him as the villain, because pretty much just is the main antagonist. But I like the amount of complexity that we get from him. He's not just an evil villain to defeat. We actually see some good chemistry with him and his wife. Asha gets in a little fight with her parents over trying to tell them this information, and she runs off into the forest and wishes upon a star.
Disney whimsy.
If you can't handle Disney whimsy, ooh, there is enough whimsy in this movie to want to make you vomit whimsy out your... And once she wishes on this star, Luma from the Mario Brothers franchise comes from the sky and doesn't actually grant her wish directly, because obviously Disney's all about turning all of their morals that were so, like, underdeveloped and shoddy on their head. We didn't know Pinocchio was a movie, obviously, so we can't be told to wish for anything and hope that it's gonna happen. We have to get a new message. We need to spin it in a way where, oh, you can't just wish upon a star, you also have to... You know what you're getting into watching this movie. None of this is a spoiler. This is very obvious from the first 5 minutes of the film. So Luma shows up, magically teaches a bunch of animals how to talk, sends Asha on a brief mushroom trip.
But if you just see the mushrooms, then you'll understand. So your dust is my dust?
And they go off to try to save the wishes for the village. So that's the basic plot line. It's a very classic Disney fairy tale. If you've seen a bunch of Disney movies like I have, there aren't going to be any real big surprises in this movie for you. And I suppose one of the critiques that I would say for this movie is it plays it just a little too safe. I know it's Disney, but kinda just wish it would just be a pinch meaner sometimes. I guess there are some times where I feel like the punches should hit just a little bit harder, and they don't, because it's Disney, and it's a Disney movie about wishing, and it's the 100th anniversary. And speaking of that, there are Disney Easter eggs up the freaking wazoo in this film. Many characters clearly resembling Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, references to Peter Pan, references to Snow White, other than the dwarves, references to Cinderella. There was just Disney schlock all over this film. But just so you know where I stand with Disney, I really like the theme parks. I think the work that they put into Disneyland and Disney World is absolutely spectacular. I love a lot of the animated films, and I pretty much hate every single live-action film they've ever done. Mostly the remakes. There are probably a few, like, 90s and 2000s live-action movies that I thought were actually kind of okay. That said, I don't really put Disney in any of, like, my top 10 favorite animated films or anything like that. I'm much more of an anime person. I'm way more excited for The Boy and the Heron, which I am also going to review, so make sure you're subscribed for that. But I also don't hate Disney. When I see Disney come out with the formula, I don't necessarily immediately dislike it. Like, yeah, I know it's Disney, but you know, you kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit for certain fairy tales. I love reading fiction, I love science fiction, and you know, sometimes obviously things aren't gonna make perfect sense. The sorcerer who can grant wishes, how does that work? Well, we just don't ask those questions, it's not important. We just got a Nintendo reference dropped out of the sky. Are we really gonna sit here and start asking how magic works? So the way that I'm gonna think about this movie is partially in the grand scheme of film and animation in general, and a little bit with the caveat of all Disney films, because Disney is kind of its own genre at this point. Unless Disney really tried to step it up and blow everyone's expectations with a movie that takes a lot of risks, I kind of rate Disney on a much safer grading scale because it's not going to be taking those risks, and this movie doesn't take those risks. The one risk that it did take that I want to highlight is in its animation. If you've heard anything about this movie, you might have heard that it's got a style of hand-drawn backgrounds mixed with CGI movement. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that exactly right. I'm not an animator. I don't know exactly how it works. But basically, they're blending CGI with hand-drawn. I was really excited to see this movie for that reason specifically, because I was hoping for like, oh wow, a lot of people love the classic hand-drawn style. I'm one of those people. I love it. Anime. I'm excited to see The Boy and the Heron. Disney would rather do CGI because it's cheaper and easier to make their films. Not that it can't be stunning as well. Obviously, Disney has mastered CGI. Pixar's mastered CGI. They know what they're doing. But I was really interested and invested to see this sort of blending style. And it was okay.
Well, you're young. You don't know anything, really.
It didn't add as much to the movie as I was thinking. There were definitely some shots where I was like, okay, this makes this feel like a storybook. This gives it a style. This is very cool. There were other times where I thought it actually just made everything feel kind of flat, because the CGI obviously pops out. It stands out. That being said, I still want to just give them credit for trying it, for trying to blend this style and at least paving a way for other creators, maybe Disney themselves, to try to workshop it and do it more of it. I would say a majority of the time I didn't even notice it, which I guess is a good thing, but it didn't ever give me a moment where I was like watching Coco from Pixar, for example, and I'm like, wow, this is visually just so stunning. There are beautiful shots in this movie. Do not get me wrong, it's Disney. There's beautiful shots, right? It's just I didn't feel like the new animation style emphasize that necessarily anymore. More than a small handful of times. So on from the animation, which is Disney, you can expect it to be good, even with the experimental style. Regardless of how you felt about it, it's still good animation. So how are the characters? The villain was the best part of the movie for me. They finally got a villain right for the first time since like Dr. Facilier from Princess and the Frog.
And this is the thanks I get.
Towards the end, when we see the villain really show off their stuff and dive into the villainry, oh my god, you will not be disappointed. If anything, if you like seeing a good Disney villain, you'll like this movie for that reason alone, because this guy delivers. And as soon as he just finally gave into being a villain and started owning it, he owned it. I wish he had almost just been a two-dimensional villain from the beginning. I don't wish that, because I'm glad they gave him more complexity than that. But man, when he starts doing his villain thing, oh, wow, it is powerful. They gave him the most epic scenes for sure. Everyone else in this film, they're they're okay. The protagonist is just whimsical enough to not be totally boring. It seemed like she really had one dimension to me, and it was just, I want to see our village be better, which is a good dimension. It didn't, like, feel bad. I said bordering on boring. I don't think she was that boring, and maybe some of the animation with her was even a little stiff compared to what I've seen before. Like, if we look at Aladdin, for example, he's so animated. His body and facial expressions are bouncing everywhere. I mean, Jesus, even the carpet in that movie has so much personality. And I felt like none of the characters, minus the villain, really expressed themselves all that much. We got an obligatory animal character, the goat.
I'm a star!
They were pointless, but not annoyingly pointless.
See, that's where all the balls of gas come from!
I feel like characters like this goat have been in Disney films before and been a lot more frustrating for me to try to get through the movie. And not only was he not pointless, he even made me laugh once or twice. Overall, really didn't need to be there, but it's a Disney movie. So at the time of recording this, I noticed that Wish has gotten a Rotten Tomatoes score of 64%. And in all honesty, I don't even like to mention Rotten Tomatoes because I don't think it's a good place to base your ideas of a movie. I don't think it's deserving of that low of a score. I think it's better than a lot of Disney movies. And truth be told, my brother, who's on the show, he worked at Disney World for a long time. He's a huge Disney fan, huge Disney nerd. I'm sure he's going to love every second of this movie. And honestly, I'm kind of a Disney fan. I've been there, I saw a lot of references, and I did appreciate them. I have seen most of Disney's catalog, and even though I'm not the hugest fan, it was impressive enough to me that I was like, you know what? This is a good movie. I definitely could tell that this was so obviously shot, especially towards the end, to be in Disneyland, Disney World, those, you know, the theme park properties fireworks shows. And even though that was very obvious to me and it kind of took me out of the movie, I'm like, yeah, I see all the marketing you're doing here, Disney. I didn't necessarily even hate it because I thought it would actually look really cool in the fireworks show, and that doesn't bother me. I'm enough of a Disney fan to appreciate, like, okay, you created a cool tie-in for your theme parks, and even though I don't really care about it watching the movie, I probably would really enjoy it in the theme park. If you're looking for a simple fairy tale, a simple story that's heartwarming and nice and gives you a fairly easy and non-complex moral, maybe that's a bit confusing if you think too hard about it, but if you don't think too hard about it, it's just nice. You'll probably really like this film. It's good for bringing your kids to. It's very safe. It's not pushing the boundaries of anything that Disney's ever done before, in my opinion, outside of maybe its animation style. If you're interested in animation and you're a fan of animation, you should see this just to see how it's done. And if you know more about animation than I do, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments if you see this movie too, letting me know what you thought and how it was done, and if, in your opinion, it was over the top, really, really impressive, really hit for you, or if it was not so good. Maybe you thought it would have been better CGI. I'm a little bit in the middle. I thought it hit for me sometimes, wasn't noticeable, maybe was a little flat sometimes. In the middle is kind of where I am personally in the movie as well. Again, I'm not a huge Disney fan. If you're a huge Disney fan, this movie's for you. You'll love it. You'll love the tie-ins to other old Disney films. If you're looking for a complex, interesting, unique story, you're not really gonna get it here, unfortunately, in my opinion. If you like Disney villains, and you're not necessarily a fan of all of Disney, but the Disney villain thing gets you going, you'll like this movie. The Disney villain pays off. Trust me on that. It's worth seeing. I would even go as far as to say it's worth seeing in the theater. You really want to be dazzled by the animation, because I'm glad I saw it in the theater. I thought it was very pretty. The music design was really good. The score was really good. Oh my god, I almost forgot to talk about the songs. The songs were 50-50 for me. Some of the songs hit really well. There's one where they're like gearing up for the climax. I thought that one was really good. The villain has a really good villain song. I did think there were maybe too many songs. I don't think that all of them were as impactful or important to the plot as others, but it's Disney. It didn't ruin anything for me either. Maybe one time I heard a song start and I was just like, oh god, now? But overall, not bad. As far as Disney's going, especially as far as their recent films are going, I give it a good score. In the grand scheme of animation and films in general, I'd probably give it a C or maybe B- favorably. It's a good Disney movie. If you're a fan of Disney, I think that you'll really appreciate all of what they were going for and a lot of what's going on. If you're really into animation, I think you will too. If you're not really into Disney, if you like faster pace, more hard-hitting cartoons and animation, if you're more of an anime fan, I don't think you're gonna love this that much. This very much is Disney leaning even further into their Disney audience and not wanting to expand outside of it. And I don't necessarily think that's a problem, but it's definitely not going to win you over if you're not already sold with the Disney formula. It's not doing that much new, but it's not doing anything particularly harmful or bad either. It's a little experimental, a little bit interesting, a little bit funny, and a little bit well done. Nothing I'm jumping over the moon for, but nothing I hated either. Let me know your thoughts. It was really cool to go see this pre-screening. I'm really excited to edit this and get it out for you guys, and I'm just excited for more movie reviews. So let me know in the comments what you thought of this movie, what other movies you want to see me review, whether it's old or new, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.